Hello and welcome to That Fabric Guy here on YouTube, where I will dive into fabric related topics every week. And today we're going to look at how we can create Power BI semantic models straight from Fabric Portal. So let's dive in. All right, we're in the Fabric Portal here, and I'll zoom in a little bit for you guys because the screen might be a little bit difficult to read. The thing we're going to do today is creating a semantic model right from the Fabric environment, and that is very, very easy to do. So I've just navigated to my lakehouse. It's called Gold. It's just a sample lakehouse with some dummy data in here. It contains the New York City taxi and limousine company open source data set. So we have information on taxi rides, taxi types, dates, and pickup locations. And what we're going to do today is create a semantic model all from our web browser. Now, mind you, we can still create semantic models from Power BI Desktop. However, if you're unable to use Power BI Desktop because, for example, you are not allowed to install software on your machine, or like me, you're working on a MacBook, it will be difficult to use Power BI Desktop without virtualization or using Azure VMs or something like that. Luckily, we can create semantic models from the web, and with Fabric, we have the option to use Direct Lake as our data storage mode, where the data will be stored inside your Fabric Lakehouse, not in the Power BI semantic model itself, and you get a live connection, if you will, or a Direct Lake connection as it's actually called, to your Fabric Lakehouse. So I will show you how you can do that. From here, from the Lakehouse, we can browse, as you can see, the different tables that we have. So we have our locations drop off, locations pick up, taxi types, and so on. And from here, we see this big button on top saying new semantic model. So we click that. And then from here, we can give it a name. We call it taxi analysis. And we will include a couple of tables. Let's include the dim dates, the pickup locations and drop-off locations, the taxi types, and our, let's see, clustered by date and taxi type data sets. That should be all right. Yep, that should be all right. And then click confirm. We have to wait for a little bit for the model to be created. And now when the semantic model has been created, we can actually start working with it. And the screen that we see here is very, very similar to the screen that we might know from the Power BI desktop semantic modeling experience. And what we see in here are the tables that we included in our model. We can see the properties, we can see the data model in here as well. And we can find all kinds of different settings and properties, parameters, tables, calculations, and so on that we can create. So what I'd like to do first of all is to make this screen a little bit easier to read. Let's put our tables in a fashion like this. I like to visually make sure that my dimensions are actually on top of the fact table so that my filters trickle down visually as well in the table schema, in the model view. Now we have to create our relationships. So as you might know from Power BI Desktop, this is simply a drag and drop exercise. So let's start with the dates in here. Let's find our pickup date there, and we have the date here, so we can simply drag and drop pickup date. And then from the dim to the fact, we make a not a many to one, we make a one to many relationship. We do the same thing for our drop off location. All right, now we have created the model with the relationships. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the names of our tables in order to make them a bit more user-friendly. And in the end, that's what semantic modeling is all about. It's creating data models that are very user-friendly. All right, so what I can do is click here on data and then simply go here to more options on the table view and click rename. I will call this dates and hit enter. So that is now a bit more user-friendly. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the fields that we won't need. And what we won't need are the primary keys in our dimensions and the primary and foreign keys in our fact tables. So let's look at the date. And this is actually the first one that we want to hide. The primary key in our date table is actually the date column. That is something we want to use in the report, so we are not going to hide that. For the drop-off locations, the location ID should be hidden. For pickup locations, same thing. The location ID should be hidden, as well as for taxi types, the ID column should be hidden. And then in our trip data, we have a lot of things that I want to hide. I want to hide the foreign keys, the primary key, if there's any, I'm not quite sure. And I want to hide all the numerical fields that we will be using as the basis for our aggregations, for our measures. So we have to go through data and then do the Control clicks doesn't seem to work. That's strange. If I do shift click, it selects a range. That's all right. And then just clicking once will hide all the fields that I've selected. So these can all be hidden as well. This is all information that we are not using right now. I think we can hide most of the table, actually. We can probably hide the entire table. That's amazing. Yes, okay, so the trip data table is indeed entirely hidden. That's very common for fact tables. So in fact tables, you usually have foreign keys pointing to your dimensions, and you will have numerical columns or measure columns that you will use to create DAX measures. And none of them are needed because we're going to create relationships for the foreign keys. No need to show them in the report. And we're going to create explicit DAX measures for for our aggregations and KPIs. So also there's no need to show them in the report. That means that all of the columns in our fact table are now hidden. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create measures in order to actually analyze our data. So let's do a few, maybe do trip distance and the fare amount and the passenger count as the basis. We can go here, click on new measure. That is one way to do this. And we can say trip distance in miles is the sum of trip data. And then we search for distance. We find it right there. And now I really hope, okay, so this is now gone wrong. And this is actually what I wanted to show you. So that's, the demo is all right, but the thing that's going on is not right. The trip distance in miles measure is now being created in the dates table. That's not what I wanted to do, but that's because the new measure button here simply doesn't know where to put stuff. So the trip distance should be moved to another table. Let's see if we can do it right here. No, we can't. There was a button. It seems there is no way actually to move this. Maybe we can do it from the modeling experience here and then properties. And then here we find the home table. That's actually where we go. So in Power BI Desktop, there is a button here called home table, where you can create, where you can switch and measure between tables. That is not here in the web browser, it appears, but when we are in the tables view or the model view, we can select the measure and then check the home table right here in the properties tab in the properties pane. So let's change that to our trip data. There we are. Now, if we want to create a measure on the correct table right away without moving it, we can do so fairly easy by right-clicking on the table here and saying new measure. And then we say here number of passengers equals the sum of passenger counts, just like that. And we had the fare amount. Fare amount is the sum of fare amounts. That's a typo. Now in practice, I would probably use Power BI Desktop anyways, and then use something like Tabular Editor to bulk create measures in here. That's something for another video, but today we're going to do it like this. Let's change the name of this one to a capital letter P to be more consistent with our naming. No, let's change it to passenger count. Actually, I like that more. So passenger count here. Whoop. That's now being renamed. All right, so here we are. Maybe we can even create a derived measure, like we're wanting to show the number of passenger miles is the passenger count multiplied by trip distance. And maybe we want to show the average fare per passenger, which will be the divides fare amount passenger count. And that's it. That's the basis of how we can actually create a semantic model for Microsoft Fabric. direct link. From here, it is very easy now to start creating a report. And the way we do that is by going back into the examples right here. And then let's find where it is actually, because we're now losing all of this. Let's find the semantic model. There we are. And there we have text analysis. Now from here, text analysis, we can either click it and find information and then start creating DAX queries or doing reporting. But usually what I'd like to do is I click here on the three dots and say create report. And now we find Power BI as the reporting layer on the web here, where we can simply start working with any graphs that we might create. I'm not going to show you how you can actually do Power BI reporting, as I assume you might know it, or maybe we can do this in another video. However, today what you've learned is how you can actually create a Power BI semantic model, what used to be called the data set, right from the Microsoft Fabric interface based on the data in a Fabric Lakehouse, and connect it to Power BI. It's all very easy. So if we hopped from the Lakehouse into the creation of a new semantic model, we did the cleaning up of the model names, the visibility of columns, the relationships, the measures, and everything like that. Then we jumped right into the semantic model, clicked on new report, and we're in Power BI in order to create a report. It's really that simple. It's very intuitive to work with. And we don't need Power BI Desktop for most things anymore, which is great for people working with MacBooks, working with locked down corporate laptops and so on. So happy semantic modeling, and I'll see you next week.